So you want to be a landlord. Good morning, everybody. We have a fascinating story today about a seller who had a great tenant for 10 years. The tenant died. The daughter of the former tenant moved in, and it turned out to be just an absolute disaster. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is John Schenk, and I'm the founder and managing broker of Deerwood Realty here in St. Louis. We're a small real estate brokerage, mostly residential, some light commercial, and so, yeah, that's what we do. Today's story is kind of a trick because it's you have this tenant that's destroyed a house, absolutely destroyed it, and then that gives everyone ammunition to say that all tenants are terrible. And then on the other side, it's why did this property owner even rent this property out? And I think that's unfair. We have a property here where the person had been there for 10 years, always paid rent, and then the daughter moved in and just destroyed things within a year. So it's not always as easy as just, oh, well, you got the wrong tenant. And so with that, I kind of want to get to it pretty quick. Here's the headline. It's in the Washington Post, but this has been everywhere. If you've been looking around. So spray paint, soiled carpets, dead cats. Evicted tenant allegedly turned home into a slice of hell. And so as you get through it, home in Colorado Springs, what ends up happening, I mean, some of the highlights are walls spray painted with vulgarities, rooms destroyed with a hammer, carpet reeking of human and animal feces, and dead cats locked in a bathroom. What it is with feces the last 2 days, but now we got dead cats, so we got another dead animal. So the story really came out from the listing agent, but anyway, she listed the house in Colorado Springs for an asking price of $590,000, and she believes that in a normal market house fixed up, it would go for $700,000. The problem with that is there's a lot to be fixing up. So I don't know if you could see the picture go by there, but the woman who owns the house in the mid-2000s moved, and if you remember, 2007, 2008, the housing market crashed. A lot of people turned to single-family rentals of their property when they had to move for business or for their health or something, and so they would hire out a property management company, and that would be that. And then the hope is they never wanted to be landlords. They wanted to be able to sell the house and not have to bring money to the table at some point in time. So, I mean, right now in 2021, most people are whole from that. But this particular story turned out poorly. So it turns out that the woman had the property rented until about 2018. When the owner found out that the tenant had died and her daughter had moved into the home. At that point in time, the monthly rent was about $2,800 a month, and the new tenant allegedly installed a $38,000 roof on the house that she did not own. When the woman told the contractor to drop dead after they asked for payment, the company put a lien on the house. So now we've got a house where we've got a problem. We never screened the original tenant, we never screened this tenant, and now she's moved in and made choices to put a new roof on the house, and now that's put a lien on the property. And then getting to one of my topics that I enjoy is the neighbors said they would hide when they saw her because she scared them so much. So now we've got a single-family neighborhood. We've got a rental that's gone totally off the rails, and the tenant is frightening the neighbors. So, I mean, that's just a nice little slice of hell to live in, which no one's looking for that. So, around Halloween of 2019, the woman was evicted, and then where it gets a little bit strange is the story says, but somehow was allowed back inside the house by a property manager within 2 weeks of her departure. So normally when you evict somebody, you don't let them back in the house. There's a reason why you're being evicted. And so after that, the seller was referred to a real estate agent, and the real estate agent went to look at the property, and she said, I think the tenant has done some damage, but they weren't really sure what was entailed, so what was going wrong. So just to highlight, when Foster first set foot inside the house, the damage was comparable to a war zone. She remembered how hard it was to breathe with the smell of feces on the floor towards the front door hitting me like a brick wall. The walls were covered in spray paint expletives that mentioned the owner by name. So that was pretty terrible. The most shocking thing for the real estate agent when she went through it was that she found 2 dead cats locked in one of the upstairs bathrooms. And so that was pretty terrible. And so, yeah, that's it. So, they say that the house is worth $700,000 fixed up. But, you've got to lien on the property, at least one. And so that's a pretty bad situation. And as always, I have questions, I have thoughts, and wanted to go over them with you. And the first one is, I don't even have to look at my sheet today. What do you think that the listing agent did right here? So let's just walk through it. She has a terrible listing. Okay, no one wants to buy this house. But she goes and she gets publicity for it. She goes to the news. She goes and takes the story to the press. And what that does is opens up that listing to hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of more people if it goes viral, which it did. And so now instead of competing with your local fix and flip guy, your local investor, you get this shot at finding somebody that might really pay a good amount of money for this property. Now, I think that's the right thing to do. I think if you're ever in a situation where the house is just terrible and there's a good story, if you can get it out to the local press and it can go viral, I mean, you've got a really good shot at selling that property. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot wrong with, the house, but she did the right thing. So kudos to this listing agent for doing a good job for her client. And then I was just thinking in my head, I was just doing the math, and an asking price of $590, and the realtor says the house will sell for $700 fixed up. That seems like a kind of a tight spread, given the amount of damage in the house. I mean, you're going to need new carpets, new walls. The front yard's terrible. Don't know about the backyard, but you got that smell to deal with. So can you get that all done and make a profit after that? And I would say it's going to be tight. I don't know. I know that the house is going to sell because every house will sell. It just has to be. It's just a pricing issue. So, and then number 3 for me is in 2018, the new tenant moved in, and was that a mistake? So it turns out, obviously hindsight is 20/20, but the issue here is people don't always screen their tenants, especially if there's an excuse. So now this woman's mother had lived in this property and paid rent unfailingly for almost a decade. So it just seemed obvious that the kid would follow through, but it doesn't work that way. It's just been it's been my experience that everyone has to be, looked at before they move into a property, because once they move into the property, then you have to, go the legal route and evict them. Unlike the story of the fellow, the property, the developer in New York that tried to burn the houses down with the people in it. So one of the questions I had was, how was the contractor able to do the work on the roof without the owner's consent? That was one thing that didn't sit well with me. And then, when the contractor went to put the lien on the property, is that when they found out that the person didn't own that asked for the work, didn't own the house? And then, at that point, obviously you would immediately go for an eviction. But the tenant had become a menace in the neighborhood, with neighbors hiding to avoid her. And I wonder if there was something there that could have been done. It seems like there's a lot of these stories where you have a neighbor that's off the rails and everyone knows it and no one's quite sure what to do about it. I'm not even quite sure what to do about it, but something weird was going on, and it was going on for a while. And again, can you imagine just driving home from work and you have to deal with a crazy neighbor and you have to just avoid the neighbor all the time? It really ruins your quality of life and your ability to enjoy your property. And then another thing I have is the case remains open but is inactive. Authorities have not been able to contact the former tenant or the property management company. And I find that very hard to believe. In 2021, we can't track down a tenant that destroyed a property, and we can't track down the management company that was supposed to be managing the property. To me, it just seems that in any of these cases, people look for your seller's looking for help. Okay, they're looking like the authorities, somebody, and more often times than not, it seems there's no one there. There's like a false sense of security that we all have, that things are going to be okay. If something happens to us, we'll just call the authorities and they'll take care of it. But the case is open, but no one's really taking hold of it and doing anything about it. And then for a year, this property had been sitting in a dispute between the insurance company, the authorities, and the property management company, which has disappeared. And as a property owner, you have to ask yourself, what's the point of this? Like, if you're going to rent out a property, are you going to try to make money on the property? Are you trying to, claim a deduction? What are you doing? And, take a look at your insurance. Take a look at, your property management company. Why are you paying for these services if they're not being helpful when you need them the most? And so, finally, I'm not pro landlord or pro tenant. I do think new landlords should have some idea of the encounters they will face, and I think tenants should be a little more understanding when it comes to what might be considered heavy-handed screening up front. So, as I've said before, I used to be a property manager a while back and wasn't very good at it. And I mostly ran the back end. I very seldom ever dealt with anybody. But, we had in the places I worked, we had a wonderful ability to manage properties. We did just fine. There would always be just like maybe out of 100, there'd be one tenant that was just a nightmare. And usually it was, you could kind of see it coming, but for single families, the landlord would say, well, we'll just try on this one. We'll give them a shot. And more oftentimes than not, that was the situation where it would end up in an eviction. So, there's a lot of disgusting places that tenants have to choose from out there. I'm not real excited about the way landlords treat some of their tenants by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think that there's a lot of first-time landlords, people thinking about getting into real estate investing, that think, oh, everything's going to be fine, and if a tenant screws something up, we'll just fix everything. And like in this case, this lady doesn't have any money to be able to fix these things, and is going to sell, and it's going to be at a loss, maybe, depending on how it works out for her. But I don't think she saw it coming, and I think that's the worst part of it. Is just if you have to make a mental break if you are a property owner, and when you put the property, when you're going to list it for sale, it's it's no longer your personal residence, and the same thing with when you're leasing your property, you're going to have to be more detached than you would. It's no longer just like the home that you raised a family in. It's now a home that's generating rental income from a tenant that is going to have some expectations of quality, or they'll just move somewhere else or destroy your property. So One thing I did want to say is I've got a link to the YouTube video that the listing agent made for the property, and I'll have that in the description. And that's all I have. So, what do you guys think? I mean, is this obvious? I mean, to me, this is over the line, and the tenant's totally in the wrong on this one. I don't care. I don't care about anything, and I think that's a pretty easy call. But I'd be interested to know what you guys thought. So, send me an email, media@deerwoodrealtystl.com, or give me a call, 314-274-3954, and I'll catch you on the next one.